Roasting a chicken can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. Today I'm going to show you somewhere in the middle. It's not too difficult, but it's a little bit different, and I think you're going to enjoy this one. Before we start working on the chicken, we're going to make a lovely little seasoning that is not complicated at all, that will season our chicken. Now, you can, of course, make nice complicated seasonings if you want. You can add spices, paprika, garlic, loads of different herbs, whatever you want to it. But we're keeping it so simple today because it's all about how to roast a chicken, not necessarily about how to flavour it. So today it's going to be salt, pepper, and I've got some dried thyme. Because I think when you're roasting something for quite a long time, a dried herb works really well. We are also going to use fresh herbs, and they're going to go inside the chicken, but I'll show you that later on. So begin by placing some salt into a bowl, and I'm going to use a flaky sea salt. I'm not going to be too specific on the quantities, I'm just going to roughly do 4 teaspoons. The salt that I like to use on a daily basis at home is Maldon sea salt. I just really like it, I've used it for years, and I know exactly what I'm working with. And then into the salt I'll place 1 heaped teaspoon of dried thyme and a good amount of cracked black pepper. Give it a good mix until the herbs and black pepper are evenly distributed throughout the salt. And now that our simple seasoning is ready, we'll turn our attention to a few vegetables. And all I'm going to do is simply roughly chop 2 carrots, 2 sticks of celery, 1 brown onion. You can also leave the skins on because these are going to get used to make a gravy. So ultimately it's all just for flavour. And add half of a full bulb of garlic. Keep the other half because we're going to use that later. And leave the veg nice and chunky because it's going to be in the oven a while, so we don't want it to cook too quickly. This tray of veggies is just going to sit on the very bottom of the oven, and they'll cook slowly and they'll collect all the fat and juices that are dripping out of our wonderful chicken. The first step with our chicken is we want to pat the skin dry. So I'm just going to use some kitchen towel, some kitchen paper. And the reason for this is we want super crispy skin. And you're only going to get that if you put nice dry chicken in the oven. So just pat it dry all over. It's already quite dry, this one. And then we're going to season it up. So first of all, I've got some nice fresh herbs from the garden. I've got some beautiful lemon thyme here. Smells so good. Any thyme will work or do the job. I've got some rosemary and I've got some sage. Now I've just picked a random selection. You can use absolutely any herbs that you have or you like for this. It's completely up to you. But these are beautiful fragrant herbs and I think they'll do a wonderful job. So they're going to go inside the cavity. But first I'll hold it up and I'll generously sprinkle some of that seasoning inside. And then I'll add in the fresh herbs and the half of garlic that we had left over from before. And next we just need to drizzle our chicken with a little bit of olive oil. We could also use some soft butter and rub it into the skin all over, and that is absolutely beautiful. Today I'm just going to use the olive oil. So I'll get that on and I'll rub it all over, and this is just to help the seasoning stick. So place that all over everywhere, even the bottom, because we're going to cook this in such a way that the whole lot will get crispy and beautiful. We now just need to add our seasoning, and we want to do it from up high because when you sprinkle from above it distributes evenly. That's why you see chefs doing this. It's not to be fancy or do anything or showing off or anything like that. It's purely so the salt and the seasoning distributes evenly over whatever you're cooking. Now make sure to add the seasoning absolutely everywhere. Now once you've got it so the chicken is completely seasoned, you could place this in the fridge for 6 to 8 hours, and that's essentially going to brine. It's almost like a dry rub that we've put on. That's going to season the meat and really penetrate deep into the meat so that you get that beautiful salty flavour throughout, but also it'll keep the meat really juicy. So you could put it in the fridge, like I say, for 6 to 8 hours, or you can just get on with it like this. Now, I don't have time. I could pretend to put it in the fridge for 6 hours and get it back out and say, hey, it's 6 hours later. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to roast it as it is. But first, I'll show you the 2 different ways we can roast it. The first one is we've got our vegetables on the tray. You get a rack like this, place it over the top, and then you place your chicken onto there. That way the air can circulate all the way around the chicken and you get nice crispy skin all over. But today I fancy having a little bit of fun and trying to recreate that rotisserie chicken style. So I'm going to tie this up and I'm going to hang it in the oven. Now I'll show you how to tie it up next. And trust me, this isn't a traditional method of how to truss a chicken. This is just how I want to tie it up to make it hang nicely in the oven. By the way, if you want to cook it just on the rack like that, it is more simple and a bit less fiddly, and the cooking times and everything will stay exactly the same. So feel free to just go ahead and do that. So first of all, you'll need to cut a piece of twine that is about 6 times the length of your chicken. That's probably more than we need, but I just want to make sure that we have enough. And then we're going to find the middle of our string, so roughly around there, and then place it behind the 2 legs. And then I'm going to do a simple knot, just a standard sort of like you're tying your shoelaces, and I'm going to pull them together, but I'm going to make sure that they cross over. Just like that. Pull it nice and tight, and then another knot just to secure it. I'm then going to wrap each one round 4 times. Doesn't have to be specific, I just want to make sure it's nice and strong. Then we're going to go under the legs, between the wings, and we're going to tie it up at the back. Just sort of under the breast. So again, simple knot, there we go. Nicely bunched together. Then tie that off again. And then I just go underneath the wings and back to the top. And then tie it off. So now we should be able to pick up the chicken and it will hang nicely. You can have a look and readjust the string if you need to make sure it's just going into the nice areas. And then the next step is to tie this onto our shelf, because then it'll hang from the shelf above our tray and it should be a beautiful roast chicken. So take your string, you want it about halfway through your shelf. You should have the 2 pieces of string there like this. Just put them either side, and then we're simply going to tie it on. But we might do a couple of ties here because we do want to make sure that it's nice and strong. I forgot to mention earlier, just simply tuck the wings underneath the bird, and that just helps prevent the tips of the wings from burning. So next we'll place it into a preheated oven at 120 degrees Celsius fan. The fan is very important with this because we want the air to circulate all the way around the chicken. And we'll place the vegetables onto the bottom of the oven, and then we'll place the tray on the highest rack with the chicken hanging over it. Keep your fingers crossed, please work. So after 20 minutes of cooking at 220 degrees Celsius, we'll turn it down to 180 degrees Celsius and carry on cooking it for another 30 to 40 minutes, or until it reads 72 degrees Celsius on a meat thermometer. Okay, so once it's ready and it's reading 72 degrees or above on a meat thermometer, you can take it from the oven. And I do that by simply placing a wooden spoon between the legs and then snipping it off at the top with a pair of scissors. And as you can see, it's come out beautifully crisp all the way around, and it's just perfectly cooked all the way through. Nice crispy skin, nice brown colour all over. And what we'll do now is we're going to place it onto a cooling rack and leave it to rest for a minimum of 10 minutes before we carve it up. The reason I'm resting it on a wire rack is because the air can circulate all the way around, keeping that skin nice and crispy. To carve your chicken, start by removing the legs. Cut down between the breast and the leg, and then it will reveal exactly where the joint is. You can cut straight through that joint and the leg should come off in one go. And that is your drumstick and your thigh. Repeat that on the other side. And then to remove the chicken breast, cut down the centre next to the breastbone, and then gradually just pull it away and run the knife down the breastbone until the full chicken breast pulls away. Once the chicken breast is almost fully removed, you'll be able to see the joint, which is where the wing is attached. You can just simply cut through that, and then you have the chicken breast and the wing all taken off in one go. And then you can separate the wing from the breast if you like by cutting straight through the joint or simply pulling it away with your hands. You can then pick all the remaining meat off the carcass and then use the carcass for chicken stock if you want. And I find the best way to slice up your chicken breast is just to lay it down flat and simply slice it up as thick or as thin as you like. Now I'm going to show you how to make the gravy. Well, I've already made it because here it is, but this is what I did. Place a tray of cooked veg over a medium heat and then sprinkle in roughly around a tablespoon of plain flour to absorb the fat. Stir it through and this will create a roux that will absorb all of the fat and help it make a nice thick gravy. Once that's mixed through and it's cooked out for roughly around 2 minutes, then you can pour in a liquid. Now this liquid can be just water, it can be wine and water, or wine and stock, or just stock. Today I'm using chicken stock and I'm using roughly around 500 mils. But that's not a strict measurement because you can add more liquid and less liquid depending on your preference and how thick you like your gravy. Give it a good stir, and once it's mixed through, you can then pass it through a sieve into a saucepan. Press as much of the gravy through the sieve as you can and then bring the gravy to a simmer over low heat. At this stage, you can taste it and season it to your preference with salt and black pepper. Pour it into a jug and your gravy is good to go. So there's my guide to cooking a roast chicken. I hope I've made it nice and simple for you. You don't have to hang it up in the oven like I did. Remember, you can lay that onto a wire rack and roast it. Or you can lay it directly on top of the veg, but you won't get that crispy skin on the bottom of the chicken. If you enjoyed this one, give it a like, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.